Today I want to talk about one of my favorite low-tech items that I use here in 2024, and that is my typewriter. Let's get into it. If you don't know me, I'm Spencer, and I like to talk about simple living, frugality, and cutting down on your technology usage, sometimes by using other technologies. Now in this video, I'm not going to talk too much about why this tool is the tool to use in 2024 for writing. It is great. But I want to talk about just my personal experience with it and why I just find it so much fun. This is my typewriter here that I have. This is a Royal Fleetwood. I believe it was made in the late 1960s. It's made by Royal. It is a very interesting looking typewriter. I haven't seen too many that look a lot like this one. There was a lot, in the early days of the typewriter, they were black, and there was the portable version, then there was the much larger versions, and then they kind of got this more rounded shape to them, and they kind of had this almost powder coated look to them. This one is one of the few out there that is this wood grain material. It is plastic, it's a cover, and then it has these very nice red accents throughout the entire thing, and I think that really makes it pretty nifty looking. And what's more important is that this typewriter works really well. It is a fully mechanical typewriter. It doesn't need any extra things. You don't need to plug it in. It doesn't do anything like that. The interesting thing about the Royal Fleetwoods is that the case that came with it, some of them actually came with an inbuilt radio as well. This one did not, and you know what? Most of the ones that I saw online, the radio wasn't working anymore, so I don't think I wasn't really missing out on too much because it most likely wouldn't have worked anyway. But I love this typewriter because it doesn't need anything added to it to get going. It's just the standard typewriter, right? It just needs your ribbon and you're off to the races. When I first got this thing, some of the keys were sticky, but I think that was just from a lack of use. A lot of the people who own these are older people who had these growing up, and then they've just kind of sat dormant for a really long time and haven't been used. So I think this thing was just kind of stiff from a lack of use. After I started using it for a few days, a few weeks, and just really hitting the keys pretty hard, everything freed up. I think all the gunk that was holding the keys and sticking them, it freed up, and this thing works like a charm now. It never sticks whatsoever. Typewriters can really range in price. I paid $55 for this thing, and given that it fully works, I think that's a pretty good deal. That was 2 years ago that I bought this, and this has been one of my favorite ways to do my journaling and just any sort of creative writing since that time. The reason that I wanted the typewriter and the reason that I still use it here in 2024 is just because it's a device that I didn't grow up with, but I'm nostalgic for just through media, through mentions of it, through different authors that I've read, knowing that a lot of my favorite books were written on typewriters, just kind of knowing it as a tool from a simpler time. It made me, excited about it as a tool. It made me want to use that and to feel the clacking of the keys myself. So I was very excited to pick up a typewriter for myself and be able to enjoy it for my writing. One of my favorite authors is Jack Kerouac. And in the On the Road movie, Jack Kerouac is, seen writing on the road at the end of his adventure. He comes home, he tapes all of the paper together into this super long scroll. He feeds it into the typewriter. He gets all hopped up on pills and alcohol, and he just starts like jazz, right? Free form writing, and he writes this whole book out in one shot, so they say. That got me so hyped around the typewriter. It was just the clacking of the keys, the kind of rhythm of it, just as it's pounding away. It reminds me of music, and that is how they liken it to in the film. And as a musician, there's just something about it. It just attracted me, and I knew I needed to pick a typewriter up. Now, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it, so I didn't get a super old like Underwood or a Corona or anything like that. I wanted to get something that was going to be a nice working typewriter, that was going to be interesting looking. Like, I do kind of care about the aesthetics to a degree, but I wanted something that was going to work and that was going to be not extremely expensive. And for me, $50 Canadian, I'm pretty happy with that. This has been a super fun tool for me. I do a lot of my writing on here. I also, as you guys know, have an AlphaSmart 3000, which I do a lot of my writing on, and I write for my Substack on that, which I have now linked in the description if you're interested in checking out my Substack. This in the future may also be something I will utilize with my Substack. I didn't really see how I was going to use it because, it types on paper, whereas my AlphaSmart types out a digital file that I can then connect to my computer and upload. This because of the technology with taking photos now, and you can scan the actual text out of a photo and copy and paste it, I could write to paper and then just scan it and then take the text out and copy and paste it over. So there is actually a way to take your writing from a typewriter and pretty easily digitize it if that's how you want to write. Now, I will talk a little briefly about how something like this works in a distracted world. It works pretty well. It's a pretty good way to keep yourself engaged in the act of writing. You know, it's a fun thing that I think makes you kind of want to write. It's a little bit of a treat to write on something like this, especially if you didn't grow up with it and find the quirks of it annoyances. Then you're going to probably more likely want to sit down and write on something like this than if you were going to write on your computer. You know, one tool isn't necessarily better than the other, but this might make it more exciting for you to sit down and actually do the act of writing. You know, obviously another benefit of something like a typewriter is the fact that it just does writing. It's not connected to the internet, right? There's no distractions that come along with it like you would find on a laptop. There's no notifications coming. There's not the opportunity to go and check out another window whenever I just kind of have the impulse to do so. Now, of course, you can just control your impulses. You need to work on discipline around how you utilize technology as a tool and not as a distraction. Of course, I'm not going to argue that. I don't want to get into a conversation about that today. It's just a fun way to go. I think what I need to highlight here with that is the fact that this is just an exciting tool for so many people, that it's something that actually excites you to write. If you can get it for a good price, a typewriter is a fun way to make yourself excited about the act of sitting down and writing. And doing the work is the hardest part, as we know. And something like this, it may just kind of grease the groove a little bit. I know for me, sitting down and feeling like I'm Jack Kerouac or something like that, it really just makes it fun for me to sit down and clack away and write something out. And it's just a lot of fun. This thing sounds so cool to listen to. I'm going to put a clip of me doing some writing on this. When I got this typewriter, it came with this case. Essentially, the case just is a lid, and this is the lid, and the typewriter, this is the bottom of the typewriter here, and they just snap together, and it can be carried around, you know, by its briefcase handle. But it's just plastic, and, you know, this came out in the 60s, so it's old plastic. I don't really trust it for bringing around with me, you know, when I'm traveling in my car. It's going to get bumped around. It might crack. One of my favorite channels that I've been watching over the last month has been Van Neistat and the Spirited Man. Now, this has quickly become one of my favorite channels, and I followed him on Patreon because I just really love what he's doing over at the Spirited Man. Van is also a big time user of the typewriter. His typewriter is a really beautiful model. I think it's a 1936 Corona. It's black. It is one of two models, according to him, that can fit inside a US Army night vision goggles box. The actual like hard Pelican style case that holds night vision goggles. He got one of these boxes and he uses it for storing his typewriter. It perfectly fits inside, and he's able to bring it with him, and it's not going to get knocked around because it's safe inside of that case with foam. I love Van's attention to detail. I love how nicely that typewriter fits into the box, and I thought that is just the coolest thing because I love Army surplus, and the fact that he's able to combine those two things and have this perfect fitting case to take his typewriter on the road, it really yanked my chain. And I was excited to try to find something like that for myself. But I thought, you know, it's going to be pretty hard to find a night vision goggle container. Now, I don't know if I believe in the whole idea of manifesting. You know, if you think about something hard enough, maybe the universe will conspire to make it happen. I don't really think I believe in that. I'm not sure. But after a couple nights ago, I'm not so sure. Today is Thursday. Now on Sunday night, I just finished a job. I was home. I was walking around that night. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I was just getting some fresh air, decompressing after work. And I like to do a little bit of a lap around my neighborhood because a lot of cool junk is always put out on the curb. And I love picking that stuff up if it's anything that I could use. Now I have found a ton of really good and also free stuff out on the curb around my neighborhood over the time that I've lived here. I found a really nice garbage can for my house. I found a front rack for my bicycle. I found numerous different books, and I even found a brand new food dehydrator in the box. But guys, this is the one that really stopped me in my tracks and had me starting to believe about manifestation. I found this while I was out on my walk on Sunday. A Canadian Army night vision goggles case. I have an Army surplus guy, a hookup, that I go and get clothes and, camping equipment and a bunch of different stuff from pretty regularly. I have never once seen one of these before. An Army surplus night vision goggles case. Now, the night vision goggles themselves are quite expensive, like thousands of dollars. They're not in here, but the foam is. Now for Van Neistat, his typewriter perfectly fit inside his case, and he said it's one of 2 models that could. My case must be a little bit bigger because with the clip-on lid that comes with my typewriter fits perfectly inside. And this has made me all the more excited about my typewriter. I've appreciated having this typewriter, as I've said, over the last couple of years. It's made me excited to write. This, though, has made me even more excited. It has amplified my excitement because now I can bring my typewriter on the road with me. And this is just, I guess, a call to you guys as well to keep your eyes peeled because you never know what somebody is tossing. One man's trash is another man's treasure, as they say, and I've always found that to be the case. I have found so much treasure in the trash, and that has amplified my typewriter here. And now I feel like I have the ultimate typewriter setup and it cost me nothing. Now, as you guys know, there's definitely a move toward people using more retro tech like this here in the present day. And I think there's a lot of good reasons for that. But this for me is definitely, it's going to appear in future videos for sure. But I wanted to just introduce this as one of my favorite things that I love to use here in 2024 and into the future. And this is kind of the beginning for me of a small series where I'm just going to talk about a few of my favorite items, a few of my go-to pieces around the house that I don't want to say I couldn't live without, but I really, really enjoy using day to day. So that's one of my favorite things here in 2024, guys. I guess 2 of my favorite things, this typewriter and now this night vision goggles case to carry it with me on the road. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's just kind of a grown-up show and tell session where I show the things that are fun and that make me happy. And my typewriter is one of those things. It's just so fun to write with this thing. And now that I have this case as well, it just feels like I have this awesome military-esque kind of robust travel typewriter kit, and I couldn't be happier. Let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comments. Do you have a typewriter that you write with here in 2024 or in the future if you're watching then? Let me know because I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.